What's going on, DET 842? I'm Hernandez, the Public Affairs Recruiting Officer, or the podcast guy, and I'm joined with...
Major Sullivan, the Director of Operations here at DET 842.
So it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, sir. We're very excited. You're fairly new to the detachment, so with that being said, we're going to just dive right into it. So you already introduced yourself, but can you talk about your rank, AFSC, and where you're from?
Absolutely. So this is a two-way conversation, all right? Two-way street here. I'm new to podcasts, so I'm new, all right? So like I said before, Major Sullivan, more so known as Monty. I am a 13N by trade, that is Nuclear and Missiles Operations. I graduated from North Carolina A&T State University, DET 605. I've been in the military now for a long time, since 2010 when I commissioned. And so, 12 years now, going on 13. And it's just a pleasure to be here today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So to dive into why you joined the Air Force, what was your reason?
Oh, that's a hard question. Long story short, I was a knucklehead. And short story long, right? At North Carolina A&T, I ran into one of my childhood mentors, and he was working at the detachment out there, DET 605. At the time of my freshman year, I was a knucklehead. I had a GPA, I confirm nor deny, it may have started with a 1 point something.
It's very specific, sir.
Very specific, right? I can't confirm nor deny it, right? And just being a knucklehead, I ran into him, childhood mentor, and I think everything happens for a reason. Right? I didn't know he was there. He didn't know I was there. He sat me down in his office, and we're talking about life, and he was asking me all kind of questions, and I was like, just out of curiosity, if I wanted to join Air Force ROTC, how would that look, and he said, well, what's your GPA? And like I said, I can't confirm nor deny, it started with a 1 point something, right? And he looked at me with like this shock on his face, and he took off his glasses, and he's just staring at me. He's like, you have a chance to make something of yourself here, and you're here playing around. How are you paying for college? And I said, well, we took out loans. And he was like, is it a personal loan? And yes, some personal loans, but my mom co-signed on some. And he said, so you're here in college partying on her dime when you're supposed to be making her proud. And so it kind of changed my life right there. And I'm like, well, what do I have to do? He was like, well, first, your GPA needs to be higher than a 1 point whatever. And so the next semester, I grinded. I grinded 3 point something GPA, all right? And then I took summer school the whole summer to try to bring my GPA up until I was eligible to join the ROTC program. I'm also an Army brat, and so I decided to go to the other side.
Okay. So we could talk about, your first college experience, your first year. What was that like, since you weren't at high school? I assume you didn't hear about ROTC, but your mentor brought that to you, and then your first experience in the program. How was that like being a freshman?
It was tough, So I started my sophomore year, right?
Oh, okay.
It should have been a repeat freshman year, right? Super senior. So I started my sophomore year, and it was a eye opener. It was shocking. I'd never been around that environment before. I grew up in a military household, so I kind of understood the structure. But to come into a program where it's like day one for us, you're getting locked up, and you're like, and so it was really, really tough transition, but I found it as a challenge, never back down from a challenge. You challenged me to be better. You challenged me to get my GPA up. I met that challenge, and so now it's just game mode. And so from the jump, I was very active in the ROTC program, because it changed my life, and it did save my life in a sense. And so it was a tough first year, but we got through it though.
So from North Carolina, right? Yeah. So as a black man, how was it like being in the ROTC program? Because I can attest to that. It can be kind of a culture shock, but I was fortunate enough to be here at UTSA where there's a lot of diversity. But going to RIPAT for my flight physical, it was like, whoa, I don't see any people that are like me. Yep, how was that like for you, and how did that build the character that?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said here it's diverse, right? At North Carolina A&T, it's a historically black college or university. However, the detachment there houses the surrounding schools, just like here, all right? And so this is a Hispanic serving institute, and so you have a diverse culture within this DET. You get to see all of the cultures, the same way that I saw at my HBCU detachment, not necessarily on the HBCU campus, but at the detachment, it was a melting pot. And I will tell you, throughout your Air Force career, you will run into situations where you will be the only one that looks like you in a room, you know. But that's okay, because you have to tell yourself you deserve to be in that room. ROTC sets you up for the melting pot, because the Air Force is a melting pot. You will run into some units that is absolute melting pot, and you're going to love it. But you will be culture shocked a couple of times. I went to Minot, North Dakota for my first base. Culture shock, you know, like, let's talk about that, right? But I think ROTC and just being around the detachment sets you up for what you'll see in the Air Force.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear, because I know it can be intimidating for people who aren't part of the majority.
Absolutely.
But to kind of change, shift gears and change the topic, do you have any personal hobbies that you're willing to share? I know, by the way, this guy benched 400 pounds. So weightlifting was one of those hobbies.
So weightlifting is one of, I love working out. I absolutely love working out. When you are a father, your hobbies kind of transition, right? And so my hobbies are my kids' hobbies. I enjoy going to my daughter's soccer game and being the loudest parent there. I take pride in that, right?
Kind of a shame, because my mom was like that too. Yeah, it was just
it embarrasses her, right? No, but I take pride in it, right? And then I just take pride in spending time with my family, you know. And so that's my biggest hobby. Besides working out, I am, fully dedicated to the family life, man, and I love it.
So, you're a family man?
Yes.
Weightlifting, anything else? I think I asked you before the podcast. You were an athlete of some sort?
I was. I ran track and played football all throughout college. And so that was a fun time. That was pretty good.
Okay, so let's talk about the football and ROTC. Were you doing it concurrently?
No. So football was in high school, so I wasn't doing ROTC and football at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't a part of junior ROTC, and I was the knucklehead, so I wasn't thinking about that, right? And so, I wasn't a part of the program back then.
Okay. So what do you see your career path, where do you see it going here at DET for it too?
So I was fortunate enough to be selected for school after this, and so unfortunate that I would only be here with you all for 1 year, because I really have grown to love the DET over my short, 3 months here so far, right? But I'm going to Maxwell, Alabama for IDE after this. So after that, I don't know. I know that I want to do a joint job, and so usually joint operations in my career field will either lead you to the Pentagon NCR region, National Capital Region, Offutt, Nebraska, or overseas. And so one of those, right, I would love to do after this, and then the sky is pretty much the limit, and the world is my oyster after that. I'm perfectly fine wherever the Air Force decides to send me after that.
Sure. So let's talk about 13N. What was, from the start as a second lieutenant to your now current rank, what was the day-to-day like for being at 13N?
Yeah, so we start off training at Vandenberg Air Force Base, a 100-day course there, and it was beautiful, all right? The training was very, very difficult. I wasn't the type that liked to take tests, and unfortunately, every block had a test, right? And so you have to pass 10 tests and an eval in order to move on to your next base. And I was horrible at taking tests, but I struggled my way through, and I made it through Vandenberg, and then went to Minot Air Force Base at the time. We were on 24/7 ops, which would mean that you would trip out to the field for 24 hours at a time, usually 32 if you include the drive back and forth from base to the missile sites, the MAFs, the missile alert facilities. You would stay out there for 24 to 32 hours, come back, and then you usually have the next day completely off, and then the next day you would do training. And so we did that. That was our battle rhythm all throughout. Now it's a little different, right? I haven't been back, but I've heard, it's a little different now, for the better, right? And so that was day to day back then, and it was actually fun. I enjoyed my job a lot.
So speaking about that, you talked about your challenges briefly about, tests and stuff. Can you elaborate on some of the challenges that you faced, such as, ones that you mentioned? Let's talk about that.
I can tell you my biggest challenge that I faced in my young Air Force career, besides testing, right? Like, that was just a given. Being a peer leader. And so it's hard when you work around a bunch of individuals that are your peers, right? Meaning same rank, and then you're in a leadership position. And so that was a really, really big challenge. I found myself in a situation one time where I had to deliver some news to someone that they were being discharged from the military, all right? And this was my biggest challenge, and I can share this story with you all. Third failed PT test, all right? You failed 3 PT tests, you get kicked out of the Air Force, right? And so that's what I tell all the cadets. You can control your GPA, your physical fitness, and your attitude, right? And so this lieutenant was on his 3rd failure, and I sat him down, and I talked to him briefly, and I was disappointed. I was really disappointed. Now, he's my peer, and so it's not like I can be the disappointed dad, because that's not me. It's a disappointed friend. And he was in front of me, and he said, I did not fail that PT test. I know I passed it. And I'm like, well, you have to sign off on your PT test saying this score is correct, right? But he told me, he said, I did not fail that PT test. I'm telling you, I didn't fail it. And I was like, well, that's up to the commander, but I think it's gone, you're gone, In a staff meeting, he texts me, I'm sitting in a staff meeting, and I'm not hearing anything that's going on in the staff meeting at this time, right? I'm just thinking about him. I was furious, and I was kind of heartbroken, because this is my peer that I'm looking at, like, you're gone, and he just had a newborn. And so you're building your family, and you fail the PT test. And he texts me, he said, I know you're disappointed, I know you're mad at me, but I'm telling you, I did not fail that test. My commander gets around the room, he said, Captain Sullivan, you have anything? And I said, I don't think you failed the test, And he was like, you have to be kidding me. He signed the paperwork. We have the paperwork upstairs. I said, well, can we go check? Maybe it was inputted improperly or whatever have you. And he was like, well, that's on you. If you believe him, that's on you. And so I went upstairs, and I asked to see his paper, and they couldn't find his paper. So then I asked, well, what score did you input for him into the system? So we found the score, and then we went through all of the other papers to see, what paper had that score on it. What ended up happening is when he took his PT test, they gave him back the wrong form. And so it had someone else's name on the top of the form. You really don't pay attention to that kind of stuff, because you don't expect those kind of mistakes to happen, but they do, right? And had I not stuck my neck out for him, I think right now I would have been sitting back here like, man, that was the worst thing, possible, right? And I'm like, man, I'm about to kick this person out that has a newborn. And so it's tough when you're a leader to make those kind of decisions, but you always believe in your people. And hey, if you say you didn't fail it, I'm going to stick my neck out, please don't get it chopped off. And so it ended up working out. But I think that was one of the hardest leadership moments of my life, going against the squadron commander in a sense. Like, I don't think he failed it, so.
It's kind of like the same mission first, but people always.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll hear that a lot in your career, and hopefully your glorious career, right? But yeah, it is. I say mission always, people always as well, right? But what I have found is when you take care of your people, they take care of the mission. You don't have to worry about the mission. It's going to take care of itself, because they're going to take care of you. Absolutely.
So, discussing previous assignments and, taking on that mentorship role, possibly being mentored, did you cultivate any relationships, mentorships with the senior NCO or a fellow officer at any previous assignments?
Absolutely. I will shout out Master Sergeant Daniel Koopman as the one that taught me the most important life lesson as an officer, and it's pretty much just to not be a horrible human being, and he kind of corrected me on something that I did that I didn't correct someone else on, and he said, you're a part of the problem. You should have been the solution because you're a leader, all right? This is a Master Sergeant. And I went to him and I said, when I'm wrong and I'm off my rocker, correct me, and he said, sir, you're a part of the problem, not the solution. You can't be a horrible human being, and that was the advice that he gave to me. That's one of the things that really stuck with me throughout my career. And I can share the story, but, I know it's not story time, but that is one thing that really stuck with me through my career. Don't be a horrible human being, so yes, shout out Master Sergeant. Cool.
Shout out Master Sergeant. So what attributes do you look for whenever you're looking for a mentor?
Yeah. I'll ask you that. What do you look for when you're looking for a mentor?
That's a good question. Yeah. Some sort of sense of guidance and humility with that's a tough question to put me on the spot.
No, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot. No, honestly, I look for myself in a mentor, right? I want you to be the leader that I want to be, and so
Absolutely.
That's a constant self-evaluation of myself as well. Like, what leader am I being today, And so when I look at individuals and I say, I want to be like this person seems like they have it all together. They have a great I'm not going to call it balance because there's no such thing as a family work-life balance, right? But they have a great way to mesh the two together, right? Somehow, some way, they are figuring out life as it goes along, right. And they look like they're rocking it, right? I want to be like that person right there. You know, female or male, it doesn't matter. Good leaders come in all flavors, right? And so I always look at, can I see myself in that person? And if I can, that's the person that I want to take advice from, you know?
Mm-hmm. So how, you mentioned it was kind of difficult to do that, to mesh it. Can you speak on your experience on trying to mesh that work, family, all that stuff? Absolutely. I know it's pretty difficult.
It's still difficult, right? You know, and especially right now, like we were talking earlier, right after this, I'm going to go to my daughter's soccer practice, right? You know, and so when you have kids that are heavily involved in sports, it's kind of a busy lifestyle when you're dedicated to your job as well. But I've found good mentors that have given me good tools. And this is one thing that I will share with everyone here. Find a philosophy in life to live by, all right? And so my balance is not how much time I actually spend at work or with my family or whatever have you. My definition of a great day is making sure that I did spend that time. It's not about the quantity, it's more about the quality, all right? And so you'll hear this probably in Lead Lab one day. Faith, family, fitness, sports, and fun. The 5 F's. That's what I live by, all right? If I can hit those 5 things every single day, I've had a great day. Great day, you know?
So what was the 5 F's again?
Faith, family, fitness, force, as in the Air Force. That's your job, right? And then fun. The one thing that's tied into all of that for me, I have to be having fun with all the other 4, right? You know, because that's what makes life. That's what makes life go. And so 5 F's is what I live by.
I need to keep a mental note. I've never heard that one. That's a unique one, so I'm gonna have to keep that in here. So what were your at a previous assignment? What were your favorite and least favorite things about your work culture?
Ooh, you're trying to get me fired, man. So my favorite thing, I will say this: I was stationed in, and I pulled this out. I was stationed in Minot, North Dakota, after school. So for my first official assignment, I was in Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota. And anyone that speaks on Minot, if you hear anyone say that they disliked Minot, ask them what they did in Minot, right? And I can guarantee you they probably stayed in the house and didn't interact as much as I interacted at Minot, because by far it's still my favorite base that I've been to. And the reason why it was my favorite base is because of the people, right? And so my favorite thing about any past assignment is the relationships that you cultivate with the people,
right?
You know, they make or break any assignment. You can be in Hawaii and have a horrible time if you're around horrible people. And so I've enjoyed building those relationships as I've been in the Air Force, some that have grown to be lifelong friends, you know, guaranteed. The least favorite thing, that's tough, man. You're going to run into bad leaders sometimes. And bad leaders can bring in organizations' morale down. And I've seen that before, all right? And so having a positive attitude, being a great leader, leading by example, to me is the most important thing. And so whenever I have been involved in an organization that hasn't been I would say that's been the toughest thing for me.
So on that topic, how can you positively impact or negatively impact the morale within the unit, whether that's enlisted and officers?
Yeah. Absolutely. Good. That's a great question, right? You lead by example, because they're following you. Like they're working with you, right? That's your team. I had a squadron commander, quick story, all right? I had a squadron commander ask me to come into his office one day, and he had a problem, and he said, "Hey, you're close to the group, right? I want your opinion on this." And he said, I go around every day at 1700 and I tell everyone to leave the building, right? Because we're not at wartime ops. There should be no reason that you're working past 5 o'clock. That's what he would tell them, right? He said, then I would walk back around at 7:30 and people would still be in the building, right? What am I doing wrong? And in my humble opinion, I think you answered your own question, right? Because you're still here at 7:30. Right? And so leading by example, if you really mean it, if you're really telling people to get out of here by 5 o'clock, you have to lead by that example. And I don't care if you leave the building for 30 minutes and come back to the office to continue your work, because at the end of the day, you are a squadron commander and you have more responsibilities than most of us, right? But you have to lead by example. Right. And so if you want to build that morale, it has to be fun, and the fun has to start with you. I will say that.
Absolutely. I can humbly agree with that. That's for sure. So we're going to switch gears once more to DET 842.
All right.
So when it comes to working with us, as cadets, what is the greatest piece of advice you would give to that your predecessors have given you that you can give to us?
Ooh. Attitude. I would say hard work matters, knowledge matters, but attitude is everything, right? And so when you go into an organization with a positive attitude, I would much rather follow a leader with a positive attitude that's not necessarily the subject matter expert on everything, because that's what you have a team for. And I can put you in a room with all of the right people that are smart enough to figure out the problem, right? But if you come in with an attitude, I can't fix that. No one wants to work for you if you have a poor attitude. And so when you go into an organization, like I said, do a self-evaluation every week. How is my attitude? Attitude check yourself, right? And make sure that you're bringing the attitude that you want out of your people as well. And so that's my greatest piece of advice. When you go to work with a positive attitude, I say, if you show up on time, you're going to be better than 90% of the people that you work with. If you show up on time with a smile on your face, you're going to be better than 99% of the people that you work with. That's that attitude piece, right? The work doesn't matter. You show up on time, do your work, and have a positive attitude. That's what really, really matters, and people gravitate towards that,
So, with that being said, how can you have a positive attitude in a toxic environment? Or maybe you're just going through the motions in life or something like that. Life can get hard. It can be very difficult to have a positive attitude whenever you're going through the motions of, like I said. So how would you, in your experience, if you have something like that, sir?
Absolutely correct, right? And I think that goes back to what's your philosophy and what's your why, all right? Because you can be having a bad time, and I'm not saying to put the mask on when you come into the office, because you should never do that, all right? A lot of leaders wear their emotions on their sleeves, and I love it. There's nothing wrong with that. It goes back to that balance in your philosophy and what do you live by, that when you show that, it shows people that though I am going through adversity, I'm still resilient. I can still be resilient, right? But you have to have that baseline philosophy of what you live by, because if you don't, you'll watch your world crumble sometimes. And you're like, man, I can't pick myself back up. But if you live by something, yes, you can, And so find your why. What's your why? You have to ask yourself that.
Absolutely. So when we first came to the detachment, what was your impression on us as cadets?
Oh man, I heard so many bad things about you guys.
No, stop it. Don't listen to this guy.
Major Brandon Seal, I'm throwing him under the bus, right? Major Brandon Seal said all kind of bad things. No, he's an amazing guy, by the way, and DET 842 alum, right? I love being here because of the energy that y'all bring. And if you hear me at PT in the morning, I'm wake me up please. I'm tired right now. I had to drive over here, and I want you to be as rowdy as you can. Wake me up. And y'all have never failed me, and that's throughout the day as well, right? You all bring positive attitudes, and you come here prepared and ready to learn. I had a chance, I teach the AS 300s here, leadership and effective communication. I had a chance to teach the AS 400s, right? Sit down with them. No matter what class I walk into to teach, everyone is prepared and everyone has a positive attitude. And I'm like, man, you are way further than me when I was a cadet, right? In life right now, right? And I love the attitude. And so I say keep that up because it's contagious, it's contagious. So y'all give me energy every day, man.
Yes, sir.
Every day.
Got to. So what are you excited to bring to the table for this attachment, or what the detachment has to bring to the table for you?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to just bring mentorship, right? Because that's what I'm here for. the reason why I even wanted to come back to ROTC in the first place is because ROTC taught me so much and it helped me so much that I wanted to be involved in the thing that pretty much saved my life, right? And I'm an open book, right? Like, you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer, and usually it's an embarrassing answer about myself, right? Because I don't want to hide anything from you all if I can save you from making the same mistake that I made as well, right? And so I'm looking forward to bringing that mentorship, but also I'm looking forward to being mentored, you know, because you all know things right now and you're so ears to the ground on the things that we don't know, that it's ridiculous. And I learn something new every single day. And you're like, man, I wish I would have known that yesterday. You know, maybe it would have saved me, whatever, right? And so, yeah, I think that's what I'm looking forward to, man. Just the two-way communication and mentorship.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you brought it up multiple times that you feel as if the Air Force saved your life. And what exactly do you mean by that? Because I feel the exact same way, but we both experienced it, the Air Force, differently. So how did it change your life or save your life?
So I didn't, I never wanted to go, and this is crazy to me. I never wanted to actually go to college, right? And as a matter of fact, I wasn't even the one that filled out my college application.
Your best
to
friend.
Go to college, right? You know, my best friend, you know the story. He filled out my application to go to college. Never wanted to go to college for one. I get to college, and I am just a knucklehead, right? Like,
again, part two.
Like, oh man, I would much rather party than study. What are we talking about, right? Like, don't we all? I mean, you know, whatever, right? And I was just being a knucklehead. And so here I am, first generation college student, and I have a chance to change the trajectory of my family tree, and I am just throwing my life away, you know? And so had I flunked out of college, I have no idea where I would be in life or if I would still actually be in life, you know? And so that's what I mean when I say it saved my life. It's because it literally did. I have no idea where I would have been, but I know it probably wouldn't have been good, you know? And this thing has just given me opportunity after opportunity, you know? And so I am kind of indebted forever to it, and that's why I want to give back to it.
Absolutely. I think I have that same, went through the same motions of that, because the freshman year, I came in the spring, so they call it AS-150, so I'm sure you're familiar with that. But the fall semester, I was kind of just partying, you know, getting crazy and stuff, and then I tried out ROTC, and it just completely rearranged things on priority on what should be important and why. It helped me figure out my why, and it completely just meshed me into a whole different person. So I 100% agree with that, and I sympathize.
Did your GPA start with a 1 point?
I'm saying, my mom would not let me get it that low. I mean, she was in high school. She was crazy. She was like, "Why have you turned this assignment?" And same thing with college. You know, I get the chancla if I didn't turn in the assignment.
That's what you get, right? But no, and honestly, it's just crazy how things happen, man, and it's changing my family's life. Since I graduated from college, my little brother has graduated from college. My dad went back to get his degree. My mom has like 27 master's degrees, right? You know, like, it's just ridiculous. She has more degrees than the sun, you know? And so it's just crazy how that chain reaction happens, and I'm like, hey, everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely, sir. So kind of getting back on the emotions of DET for it too, what is the most demanding part of your job?
The most demanding part, oh man, I don't, you know, that's crazy because I don't know that answer just yet, right? This job is very demanding. It is. Maybe the administrative side of things is probably more so demanding than the cadet side of things, because that's what I like to focus my energy on, the cadet side of things. I love that, you know. But yet and still, I know I'm here to fill sort of an administrative role. I am here to take off whatever the commander has on his plate, that is just, hey, give it to me, sir. You know, I got that, right? That's what I'm here for. And that's probably been the most demanding, but I think the cadet side of things just makes it fun, you know, and so it hasn't been overwhelming yet because it's a balance, you know. This may be stressful, but this may be really, really fun, and so it balances each other out.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So we're approaching the 30-minute mark. So with that being said, do you have any closing statements, any advice that you want to give to the kids within this attachment, or observations, just feedback for us? Anything?
Yeah, no. Always be yourself, all right? Whatever that means to you all, always be yourself. And I say, if you find yourself in those rooms where you don't think that you belong, just know that you do belong, and it's the reason why Air Force picked you to be there, all right? And so make sure you're always yourself. And I'll leave you all with a story on positive attitudes, and I really mean this, right? A positive attitude is a choice every single day, and we know that, right? And Steve Harvey tells it best. He says you wake up in the morning and you have two sides of your brain. You have storming positive and storming negative. When you wake up in the morning and you are on storming negative, you know how you say, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed today? As soon as you say those words out of your mouth, your brain starts to work in that manner. And it says, hey, he said, we woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, so let's make everything a chain reaction of badness, right? And so you're wondering why you're going through the day and it's just a bunch of bad things happening to you because your attitude is bad, right? Vice versa. If you wake up in the morning and say, today is going to be a great day, your brain automatically says, today is going to be a great day. And no matter what happens during that day, everything just seems to align. And so waking up with a positive attitude is a choice, and I pray that you continuously do that, right? Because it's much needed.
I think the same for that was taught to me was you don't have to, you get to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
That being said, I mean, you heard it from Major Sullivan himself, positive attitude, and we're getting it on that note. Appreciate you, sir.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all.